Okay guys, so welcome to the lesson that's actually going to be on Hundertwasser. So the reason why I've got you on task 1 at the moment is just to recap, to just refresh you with sort of where we've been so far with our learning journey, hopefully what we're retaining from that and reusing each time in our knowledge, so that hopefully when we get to the artist research bit that we're going to look at today, it all makes a bit more sense. So in regards to us looking at perspective, we've started off with this bit on the horizon, and I've tried to drop in, like you can see with the Vesna Delevska and the Nikki Katiki and Brittany Jeanette, I've tried to drop in some inspirational artists as we've gone along anyway, hopefully get you warmed up to where we're going. So we've done our horizon, we've done our colour with the templates, we've also had a look at you putting that information all together in your country lane scene. We've introduced a couple of the stretch tasks, so we've been looking a little bit more at narrative, and we've been looking a little bit more at the construction of what you're doing. So now we're going to have a look at our first artist, that is Hundertwasser. So firstly, we need to remember why we look at artists' work. So obviously I give you the artists that I like, but I also try and give you artists that will hopefully inspire you, if not directly from their work, but maybe you can just take something from it, whether it's maybe their use of pattern or colour or maybe their composition. And I think Hundertwasser is a really, really good one to look at in that respect. I also think Hundertwasser is a nice one to look at because of the range of artwork that he produces. So yeah, his theme is predominantly architecture and the environment, but he recreates that through his own architecture, so his own buildings, but he also does textiles and he does paintings. And I think that's really important to look at that way of exploring an idea or a theme through different mediums and different concepts. So what we're going to hopefully get from this research is something that is maybe you can carry forward in your own work. And to do that, we're going to do 3 different things. We're going to look at producing a research page. We're going to produce an analysis page, and then we're going to do some replication, some of the sections of this work and some reflection on that. The reason why I've separated these 3 out for you is because they all link in together, but it's quite important that we actually look a little bit closer at what we mean by research and analysis and replication for our practical work. So one of the tasks that I've got on here is for you to have a little look at this YouTube clip that I've found that should give you some information, and I'd strongly recommend that you have a notepad and pen next to you while you listen through it. I've also put in some examples of his work there to hopefully get you inspired, but this is our first task here. So it's going to be your research page. I've got some basic questions down the side for you to go through. So you've got, who is Hundertwasser? What types of art does he create? Include some examples because we're looking for range. What types of materials does he use? So you could show that through the annotation of what you put on there. And then who is he, or what is he influenced by? So again, include those images that you've got there. When you're doing your analysis, I want you to then go in depth. So your research, I've asked you, and I've underlined it here, to show range in what you're showing. So you're showing almost like the collection of his work. What is he all about? And then from that bit of research, you should hopefully find at least one piece of artwork that you really like the look of. And like I said previously, he does textiles. He actually commissions and builds his own buildings. So you can choose anything that you want to use. But when you come to analyze it, you need to follow what we've got listed down here. So in your analysis, you want to start off by describing what you see, describing what is there in front of you. You then want to use the formal elements, so colour, lines, pattern, texture, tone and shapes, and then reflect on what you've just written. So what do you think this work is about? What do you like about it? And that's possibly one of the most important bits about it, because that is potentially what is going to carry through in your own work. And you do the formal elements bit because it's from using that language there that you will then replicate in your own work later on. The last task that we're going to look at is you guys recalling a lot of previous information that we've done when we've done our insect work. So we're going to look at producing some pages, having gathered all of this imagery, having analysed it and looked at the idea of the patterns and the textures and the colour and the shapes that we see. We're then going to look at making some recording pages of our own. So the recall that we've got is how colour changes with distance. So that's from this project, but we have previously discussed with your insect work colour theory. So we've looked at monochrome, complementary, split complementary and double split complementary. If you're not sure what I'm chatting about, please do Google it, or I've got this little section here that should hopefully help to explain that for you. We know that details change with perspective, so obviously something's very, very close up to you, it's going to be very clear and precise, and you can see all those intricate details. So if you're looking at a building made up of brickwork, you can see every individual brick the closer up you are, but they fade and become just a blur of that colour the further away it goes, because you lose that detail. We'll know once we get to this bit some subject specific language, and we'll hopefully have a lot of that information with our Hundertwasser. So all of these little sections all tie up together. So what I'm now going to show you guys is, if my laptop will work, is how I would potentially go about putting these pages together. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through how I would do this activity. But it's up to you. You can either do it in your books or you can do it using any other program that you want. If I'm honest, if you just watch the YouTube and learn a bit about him and get a bit inspired by him, or interested in looking into some other architectural artists, then I think my job is done. Because I appreciate that this is going to be potentially a little bit of a struggle doing this page, because usually we'd have the imagery to be working from and you'd be able to print things out and access them. Now, I don't have a printer at home, so this is how I would potentially do this. So I've downloaded the PowerPoint, so you guys can all do this as well. I'm gonna take that page there, slide 1 to slide 8, and I am going to delete it all. I'm then going to, oh gosh, it always gets anxious for me when I do this, because I do get a little bit worried in case I haven't saved the original. I'm then going to do the same, and I'm going to delete those ones there. So what I'm left with is just pretty much the little Hundertwasser pages that I'm going through with you guys here. So the way I'm going to play it is, oh, if I can get that one open there, is I'm going to use this pretty much to format my own research pages, so that I've actually got a lot of this information there already for myself. Okay, so I am going to use what I've already got to produce my research pages. So Hundertwasser I'm going to keep there, and then I'm going to rename that research. I'm going to delete that there because I don't need that, but I've got my question bank here, so I'm going to pop that up there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to number that for myself, so that I know that those are all the little questions that I need to answer as part of my research. So who is Hundertwasser? I'll do a little return and a return. Oh, my numbers have gone absolutely awful now, so don't do that. There we go. So I've got that lovely little page organised there. So who is Hundertwasser? What types of art? So I can fill this with some examples of his work, and then I can put my notes in. Now what I can then do is I'm going to nick, I quite like that one, and I quite like that one there. So I'm going to control copy, and I am going to drop those in there. So there we go. I've already got some lovely little examples of his, I don't know why I'm playing around with that bit, but oops, the daisies. Oh, this is where it says, do you want to get rid of Gigi? And I go, no, please don't, not right now. I'm then going to go back into this bit here. I really like that one, so I'm going to nick that one there and pop that one in there. So I'm showing a range of his work there. Okay, but I do probably need to put in some extra little bits. Now what's really nice is this lovely version I've got here, so I could make it a bit more zhuzh, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm really happy with that bit there, so I'm going to keep that as that. I've then got my analysis one, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to say analysis, so I know what I'm doing. I'm going to take that out, and then oh no, I'll leave that in to remind me what I'm doing. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to list, and I'm going to use that image opposite because, well, I chose it because I like it, so I'm just going to pop that in there. So that's my lovely little layout there. So there's my research pages done for me. I don't need these anymore because I've taken what I need from them, so I can delete that. I am going to try and do that one on a separate piece of paper, so I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to go file, oh, and this is where it takes 30 years, save as, where would everything be? I should save it there, shouldn't I? So I'm going to save it somewhere, and I'm just going to make sure I'll rename it that, otherwise I think I might be about to rewrite the original, and that would be really annoying. Okay, so those are my little pages done there, which I think works out quite well, and that's all saved and that's all lovely. So what I'm then going to have a look at is just talking you through a little bit in regards to how you do your research. Now, I've given you this here. So I've given you this lovely documentary to watch on him. And like I've said before, what I'd definitely recommend, yeah, this is the one, so make sure this is the one that you're watching. So make sure that you take some notes while you're writing that. Now, the other key thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about in regards to your research is accuracy of that research. Now, if I go on to, if I just literally go through Google and put in Hundertwasser, you can see how awfully slow my laptop is, guys. So you know I have absolute sympathies with all of you if you're struggling at all with your IT issues at the moment. This will probably take about 30 years to upload. So if I Google Hundertwasser, then it's going to come up with every single thing that's ever been said about him. And the problem is you've got, oh, my spelling was bad. Hundertwasser. You guys have got a kind of hope that what you're looking for is accurate. Now, I would say, as much as we always say, don't rely on Wikipedia, Wikipedia is routinely checked by people to check whether for the validity, the accuracy of that information. So it's not a bad starting point, and also it does give you some basics there that mean that you can then hopefully have a look at what you're looking at to see, oh, well, does that make sense? So the fact that he was born in Vienna, Austria, but died in Australia, Queensland, show that you're probably going to find quite a lot of information from those two countries on him. Now, if I scroll down, it's got your Hundertwasser bit there from Wikipedia. Now, I would say ArtNet is always really, really spot on. They're always really decent. I'd also say something from a known gallery or museum. So if you know that you can see something there from the Tate or the British Museum or anything like that, you can suddenly go, oh, hang on a minute, well, you know, they're not going to lie about an artist, so it should be all right. Now, here's where you've got to be a bit careful. So I've now got my top ones come up. So I've got this one here and I've got this one here. Now, I've checked this one out, but just to show you sort of how you can make sure it is. Now, when you look for an artist, anybody can do a web page on an artist. If they're a really, really well-known one, and, you know, obviously foundations are run, and part of their thing is to check the copyright of artists. So if you suddenly set up a website on your favourite artist, just saying, this is my favourite artist, here's all the information, I really love them, here's some examples of their art, right, and you put in the correct copyright for that imagery, then it would be absolutely fine. But it doesn't mean that you're an expert, and it doesn't mean that the information that you're giving is accurate. So you've always got to try and do a bit of rooting around and a bit of checking. Now, so I clicked on this one thinking, okay, what are we going to get? The fact that it's got a shop, not gonna lie, kind of threw me a bit. I was like, why would there be a shop for him? But, you know, again, if they're selling merchandise actually with the artist's image on or anything like that, then there's usually some copyright images there as well. Now, I scrolled all the way through this and it looks pretty legit. It's got lovely examples of all of his work there, as well as some more information around the actual artist there. It's got his text, he's got his manifestos and everything like that. But, and this is the important bit, this is where I realised that it shouldn't be an issue. Right down the bottom here, it's actually got the fact that this is the Hundertwasser non-profit foundation. So if I select that there and right click it, then it means that I can actually search for this foundation. So it says here, oh gosh, I hope it's not going to be in a different language, because then we are in a bit of trouble, but luckily we'll have the old Google Translate. But pretty much it comes up here and it talks about the Hundertwasser Memorial, the foundation, and this, that and the other that's all been set up. So it does actually say the creative activity of the founder, Hundertwasser, which has been manifested in many different ways, blah, blah, blah. So it talks about, it's a non-profit organisation. It is all going to be legit. Everything else is all there. It's got testimonials. It's got everything there. So we should be okay to get all of our research from there. So this, if I go back to looking at my PowerPoint that I've been making with my research, where I want to have some more images in this section here, it's probably better for me to get them from that website than it would be for me to get it from just straight up Googling it. Because again, if you Google these images, you don't know if it's going to go back. So let's do Hundertwasser. You can tell I've been teaching phonics if I'm going to start spelling things out like that for myself, can't you? So if I do my images for Hundertwasser there, so I'm getting loads and loads and loads of different artwork come up. How am I supposed to know what is and isn't his work? I don't know everything that he's ever done. I don't know. I could look at that and go, well, is that a Hundertwasser piece? Is that a well, I'm pretty 100% sure that's not a Hundertwasser piece. But again, you could be easily fooled. So you could look at that, not really knowing his work a lot, and go, oh, I really like that. That's really nice. I'll take that then. If you read it, it says Hundertwasser Shield, current exhibitions, Leopold Museum. Brilliant, Leopold Museum. That must be legit. Now I know, because I know to be a little bit wary about it, because I've got 38 years of experience of looking at artwork, that actually Hundertwasser Shield. Now Hundertwasser is one artist. Shield, Egon Schiele, or Sheila, I never know how to pronounce it. They're two different artists. So hang on a minute. Am I looking at Hundertwasser or am I looking at a piece of Sheila's work? Right, so I've followed the link. And there's a bit of Hundertwasser's work. And there's that lovely one that popped up when I Googled him, which is that one there. So let's have a look at that. See, now that does say Hundertwasser. There we go. Friedrich Hundertwasser, self-portrait. Wow. That's Egon Schiele's work. You can see why I kind of thought what was going on there. But can you see how important it is to actually do that little bit of digging? Don't just assume when you're looking through these images that what you're getting is 100% going to be that artist or not. You've got to look back on it. You can't just assume. You have to click on these things and follow it back to the original source to see if it works. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go back to my lovely little PowerPoint here. So when you've watched the video, when you've read and made sure that your information is accurate, you should hopefully be able to fill out these little sections here. If you want to make it a bit easier, you might want to label up these pieces of work and talk about the materials that are in that with it. Okay, but otherwise that I would say is the easiest way to present your research and your information if you haven't got access to a printer or anything like that. If you're going to struggle to access any of, you know, a PowerPoint or anything like that, either the school desktop, then like I say, if you just watch the video, look through a couple of the sites, get a feel for what his work is like so that you can produce that additional piece where you're exploring it, then that would be absolutely fantastic. And for you to just have that experience and that little bit, so next time you see some work and you see these sort of repetitive patterns and these bright colours, you're able to go, oh, that's really interesting. That reminds me of this artist we looked at a while back. Or, you know, when you suddenly see things in like a science fiction movie, and you're suddenly looking at it going, oh, I wonder if they were inspired by that guy, Hundertwasser, or I wonder if it was the other way around. It just starts to broaden your horizons a little bit. So good luck with that, and I look forward to hearing your opinions on it. Like it or loathe it, that's what makes it interesting for me. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to part B. So this is where we're going to hopefully be using some of the information and analysis that we've done to actually inform some artwork. So I'm going to recap a little bit so that it all makes sense why we're joining all these bits together, and why actually analysing and researching and responding to an artist is so important, all these steps to inform our own practice and our understanding and knowledge of artwork in the wider world. So in our introduction, we talked about the fact that you're going to go through these 3 different activities, I suppose you'd call them. So we're looking at the section here, the outcome section, and we've already looked at the research page and the analysis page, because they will help inform this section here where we replicate little elements of that artist's work and we reflect on what we've liked and disliked about it. So we've looked at his work in quite a lot of lovely detail. Hopefully you've all managed to access the video as well so that you can gather that information. And this is that starting point here where you've looked at the range of the artist's work and collected those images. Having collected those images, you've hopefully then selected one that you've really liked, and then you've gone into more detail talking about the formal elements and all those different bits and pieces there. Using that subject specific language, which we do all the way from year 7 all the way through to post 16. It'll be something that will carry on with you pretty much forever, your ability to describe what is around you. So this is the one that we're going to concentrate on today. So this is kind of joining all of these little bits and pieces together, and that will then help inform your big response to Hundertwasser, where you're going to produce your own landscape in his style. So if you look at this page here that we've given you as an example, so this has been done by 2 alternative artists that are credited in the PowerPoint at the bottom, and what they've done is 2 very different ways to sort of pull out from the images that they've collected from the artist some key areas, some key elements to it. So if you look at, I really like this one here. This has got some key words. So I do love the fact that they're calling them lollipop trees, and I'll come back to that in a minute. They've overlapped some of the bits of colour. They've got all these key little bits and pieces, and it's just generally a really, really lovely display there of all those key elements that you can clearly see are in his work that you could later on put in your own landscape. Because if you then look at these 2 examples that I've given you, you can see where they've been informed by those lollipop trees and those repetitive lines. So if we've talked about colour, line, pattern, texture, tone, shape in the analysis, and then we look again at those images, we should hopefully be able to see that language and those imagery, those patterns and those artistic elements being used in this bit of work as well. The other section here, the tertiary colour schemes, now I pulled that because it reminded me a lot of Hundertwasser's work. And interestingly, knowing now from my research that he's been heavily influenced by the artwork that is seen of the Indigenous people of Australia, then I can actually see, especially in those top ones, it definitely does look like those kind of shapes and colours that you see in their traditional artwork as well. So it's really interesting for me when you start pulling things down, getting down to those basics, you can then start to gather all those little elements. It's really interesting with the investigative side of artwork when you're analysing it. What this bit also can help you with is to really start to evolve your subject specific language in regards to colour theory, because we have already talked about monochrome, complementary, split complementary and double split complementary. So those are all these ones here. We've never talked about this triadic one down here, but also to put it into practice, to be able to actually not just do it as a colour wheel, but to put those patterns and those lines and those mark makings and those shapes and use that artistic knowledge, I think is really important. So we're going to have a look, and I'm going to show you how I've started to lay out my research. Okay, so here's the research page that I ended up doing for my Hundertwasser analysis. Now, I know originally I was just going to be looking at this image here that's almost like this little spiral of a street. It's almost like he's kind of taken it and sort of flattened out this continuous line of the paths and the houses. So I do really like that one. But having looked back on my research where I've put in the range of images, I actually really love the colours. And again, it's those lollipop trees and those other shapes that I saw in there. So I sort of decided to put all three there to support the list that I've made down the left-hand side of the formal elements to help inform my actual practice, because I don't really just want to stick with this one when it comes to me doing my own work inspired by him. I do want to be able to include like this lovely texture up here, this almost like stippled polka dotty type repeat pattern here. We talk about texture, and it's interesting because he really does use a lot of those mark making skills, not necessarily the crosshatch, but those evident layers of the line. So when I've talked about texture, I've talked about repetition, and it's interesting because the idea of all of this sort of marries up. So when we're talking about tone, there's not any like tone as the way we always talk about it in lesson of blending your dark through to light to make something look three-dimensional, but there is kind of tone in there because you can see in sections like up here and in sections here that there is some definition there created by the darker and the lighter shades. So I've put that in, and then that also helps to create a bit of texture in there. It's almost like layers of string. And you can definitely, this is almost like a gorgeous little, almost like one of those sort of marbled top surfaces that you find. So it all marries up, and actually that's when we start putting, rather than just bullet pointing the information when we do our analysis, when we move further on with GCSE and when you go into A level, it's not just about analysing the artwork for the sake of it. It should be informing your practice. So when we talk about it, we talk about it in a more reflective way and how that is going to inform what you're doing, but we construct it in paragraphs. So I mean, you can bullet point when you do your arrows, but it's useful to talk about it and join it all up. So coming back to why I've selected these three, so the next thing that I'm doing to help inform what I'm up to is I've also taken these three images and I've tried to take little snippets from each one so that what I can do is focus my attention, because I mean, the way you would describe all of his work is they are incredibly busy images. So to help give myself a little bit of focus, and I'm bearing in mind that page that we looked at right at the beginning, where it showed sort of like that artist had taken all those little sections. So this page here. So if I'm thinking about replicating something like that, then it's definitely helped me to just take each of those images and just crop the little sections so that I'm not looking at that whole busy image. I've taken those little elements from it, and actually what it also helps me to do is I started putting them together. So this green section here, oops, that didn't help. That green section there and that blue section there came from one image, but it actually is very similar to what's been used in a couple of the others as well. So you can start to get a repetition of the kind of stuff that he's doing. So I'm now going to use this. This is almost like my little template where I will now get my book out, and I'm going to have a little go at replicating my little record sheet like this one we can see here, my elements in the art of Hundertwasser. So that'll be the next page that I'll show you guys.